Hold on, wait. Let Victoria start the recording.
You'll never get rid of me.
Record this?
Get this too.
Is this an intro?
Yes,
All
please.
right, ready, set, here we go.
Yes, you already did the raffle bit. Did you finish the raffle
I
spiel?
finished the raffle, but if anyone wants information on the raffle, I've got more. So my name's Susan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the program manager. As part of the Lifelong Mosaic program, we're thrilled that Sam is here to speak about his life. This event is an intentional effort to bring people together to foster connection and the understanding of people whose experiences are outside of our own. So we want to connect, we are looking for awareness, but mostly mutual respect and inclusion. And on that note, Sam.
Thank you. Mutual respect and inclusion. What a novel idea. Thank you all for being here. A little background. I moved to Ithaca in January. Why Ithaca? Everybody asked me, why'd you come to Ithaca? Why'd you come to Ithaca? People, I think, were expecting Cornell, Ithaca College. No. Why did I come here? For almost 18 months, I was saying, I will go anywhere there's a wheelchair accessible apartment available. It's kind of like, first one I find available, I'll go there and figure it out. And it's pretty amazing how it all kind of lined up. I know the talk is why is he in a wheelchair? So I promise we'll get to that. And I also go off on tangents. So somebody, please, for the love of God, help me if I'm going too far off on it. Oh, Susan Kaplan's here. She'd be good for that. Anyway.
I love tangents.
Okay, well, I'll try and stay on topic, but I think everybody should know that before I got here, I had lived in the same place in Greenwich Village for 15 years, and I was pretty lucky to be there. Like almost every day, I thought to myself, how am I living in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the world? And it's because I got into yoga. And because Integral Yoga Institute bought a building on 13th Street a year before I got there. And it really wasn't that accessible, and things had changed, and it really wasn't right for me to be there anymore. And I landed with friends. And I was looking for apartments for 15, 18 months. And mostly what I heard when we speak about inclusion, accessibility was the waiting lists for apartment, especially if you're low income, is really long. And if you need a wheelchair accessible apartment, Aloma just mouthed it for me. It's longer. So I was with a group of friends, and then I got some notification from the wonderful independent living centers around the state. I had been working with the one in Manhattan, then I was near the Berkshires with my friends in Columbia County. And then I started working with the Albany Capital District Independent Living Center. I got myself on a bunch of waiting lists. I actually answered an email today. There's an apartment available in Schenectady. Schenectady, Ithaca, Schenectady, Ithaca. Excuse me. Anyway, the day when Albany wasn't happening, last year, the summer, my friend in Syracuse, who, God's gift, friends who catch you when you really need it the most. So the friends who were kind of helping me stay in Albany said, look, enough with staying in hotels in Albany. Come stay in our guest house in Syracuse. It's not really accessible, but we'll figure it out. So I was staying there, and I was kind of inside for 6 months. And the day after I arrived in Syracuse, my friend here in Ithaca, he's music teacher at Elizabeth Kuhn Montessori School. Ryan and I played a job together for Greek Orthodox Good Friday in 2000. No, it was in 99, sorry. Details, Gemini. Anyway, the day after I arrived in Syracuse, he said, Daniel, his very talented son, who goes to the Eastman School of Music, is playing tomorrow night at Swing 46. Can you go see him? And I was like, oh, he hasn't heard. I'm not in the city. So I wrote back, I'm not in the city. I'm staying with friends. I'm in Syracuse. He said, where in Syracuse? I told him. He goes, my in-laws are about 10 minutes away. I'll come visit you. And it was almost exactly a year ago today that he came to visit, and he started pitching Ithaca. It's like, I started thinking to myself, I don't even know where it is. Like, I don't even think I could find it on a map without the Google Map search. And then I start touring a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's the Finger Lakes. City people, Finger Lakes. Everything's upstate to city people. One friend I had to say, I'm not upstate, I'm in the southern tier. And then, oh, Moosewood's here, the cookbook? I thought that was in Poughkeepsie. Anyway, crazy. But he says all this stuff. I start to look in Ithaca, and everything seems to be meant to be. And I have to say, even though today's talk is why is he in a wheelchair, you'll hear in my story that I think being in a wheelchair is meant to be. And it's really hard to hear myself say that. Because I didn't expect it.
You want the tissue now?
Not yet.
Okay.
Pam, who's been to several of the classes, she's on tissue duty. Anyway, but when certain things happen that you cannot deny are meant to be, I end up calling it my meant-to-be-ness factor. So Ryan comes to visit. He talks about Ithaca. Next thing I know, I'm on Google. I'm touring Google. He says, you'll want to live downtown. Everything else is hills. The wheelchair's fine downtown. Sorry to say, Ithaca sidewalks are not that great. If you often see me in the middle of the street, don't correct me. Trust me, there's a tree that's pushed a tree root that's pushed a panel of sidewalk so high on that block, I go on the street. Then I get back on the sidewalk. Anyway, sure enough, the building where I moved could not get rid of a wheelchair accessible apartment. Landlords are required to have it on the market for 60 days before they can offer it to the next person on the waiting list. But when somebody applies for it, they have to give them first preference. Apparently, my application came in on the 60th day, the last day.
Wow.
Meant to be. So my first time in Ithaca was to sign a lease this year in January. When I get here, I'm talking to my angel of a flick counselor at Finger Lakes Independent Living Center. And we were talking. I said, hey, do you know anywhere that can help me with my taxes? Because when I was applying for apartments, sometimes the return didn't match because me and TurboTax, you just put it, okay, this looks good. And there was a whole bunch of paperwork mess. And so Andrea said, oh, Lifelong has tax prep. Well, the tax prep place, H&R Block or Lifelong, right? It's a tax prep business. So I go in March, and meant to be. I roll in, and Susan, who just introduced me, I just kind of overhear. Like first of all, this is March. I got here in January. When I got to Buffalo Street, I was like, wait a minute. What's the address of the tax prep place? Court Street. Is that the next one? Wait a minute. Google Maps. Oh, I passed it. Double back. I guess I needed to be synced up because as I rolled into the door, I hear out of this ear, I'm like, where's the tax prep? Where's the tax prep? I hear Susan say, I'm looking for subs for all these classes. Mental notes, subs, what for? Roll in, taxes done. Rolling out, there's the door, there's the lady. Excuse me, what are you looking for subs for? We start talking very early on, our personalities, joking, laughing, New Yorkers, and we start talking. And this is all the stuff that I do. And yeah, I teach chair yoga and yoga philosophy and da-da-da-da. And she starts explaining. We do talks and da-da-da. And next thing I know, we're planning. And I had just, I've done laughter meditation and laughter yoga. My training is all through the Integral Yoga Institute. So taking a training outside of integral yoga was really foreign to me, but there was a laughter yoga leader training happening here, and I had done it in the city 20-something years ago, and I had done it at Yogaville, Integral Yoga's ashram in Virginia, and I had lived there. And it turned out this training was more about what we did in the Virginia ashram, and when Susan and I communicated, I sent her a resume, let's do laughter yoga, okay, great. And then she said, well, we do these mosaic talks. And does anybody ever ask you, why are you in a wheelchair? I was like, yeah, all the time. And it usually starts with, and maybe you should all do this now, I've never asked you. I hope you don't mind, but why are you in a wheelchair? No, I don't mind. My favorite thing is when kids go, why are you in a wheelchair? The blurt, the children's blurt, Like when I was wearing a bandage and had 2 different colors. Why do you have 2 different colored socks on? Well. So why are you in a wheelchair? And so what I usually tell the young people right after their parents go, what are you doing? Nope, not. I say, well, I have a condition. It's a joint condition. You know what your joints are? Your wrists, your fingers, your elbows, your shoulders, your knees. These are your joints. So mine don't work. That's the simple message. So when did this all start? Some of you know already that I'm a big baseball fan, and some of my earliest memories are watching the Yankees with my father. And you can be a sports fan and love the Yankees, hate the Yankees because you like the other team, blah, 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 blah. But really, I think most of the time, why do people like whatever team they like? It's the team they watched with their father. It's the thing they connected with their father. And my father died when I was 16. Not yet, Pam. Soon.
Soon, you're right.
So we moved to Texas when I was 7 years old. He came home one night in 1977 and announced to my mom, I'm taking Sam to the World Series tonight. 6 years old. No, you're not. I was like, I'm already in bed. What? World Series? What? Didn't happen. And I made sure to remind my mom in my adult years. I still remember that night. But by then so we moved to Texas. I'm 7 years old. And he said, before we move, we'll go to a game together. Well, we never did. And then he passed away 10 years later. So anyway, big baseball fan. And when I moved from Texas on my own back to the East Coast, I lived with my mom's sister in New Jersey, and I started going to games a lot. And I remember that was an important part of my mourning period. And one of the things that got really hard this summer, I'm no longer a 45-minute subway ride from Yankee Stadium. I realized I think I've been to the cemetery 3 times, but I was going to Yankee Stadium 15 times a year. That was my cemetery visit. That's where I connected with his spirit. It's a Jewish tradition to put a stone on the grave when you visit. It's like I should have been leaving stones almost every game. Sometimes I would just kind of zone out and be there. Where that's part of the story is in 1999, when the Yankees were in the playoffs, I went to ESPN, The Zone, this themed restaurant in Times Square, and to watch the playoff games. And they had like an arcade with all sorts of sports-related video games and things. And that night, my friend and I played the little mini bowling kind of skeet ball, whatever you call it. And a few days after that, I woke up and I noticed my toes were really swollen. And I thought to myself, did I stub my toe at the ski thing? Da, 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 da. And I kind of blew it off. And then shortly thereafter, the timeline's a little weird for me now, this many years later. Why are my other joint? Like all of a sudden I couldn't button my top button to do my tie when I had a concert. By the way, I did go to school at Boston University for music. That was the reason that oh really? That was the reason I moved back to the East Coast. I was going to school in Texas for music and really felt like I didn't have the opportunity to like audition for the East Coast schools. And I just called my aunt one fall semester and said, I'm moving in with you next semester. And I'm going to find school on the East Coast. So I ended up at Boston University. So I play the tuba, and my degree is in tuba performance. Anyway, all of a sudden the joints problem. And I'm just remembering that Ryan, who told me to move to Ithaca, the first day I really noticed there was a problem. I was going to this brass quintet rehearsal, and Ryan was there that night, actually. I remember having to leave my apartment in the city, which is Upper West Side, kind of the upper West Side, 100th Street, and walking down the street, all of a sudden, it was first the toes, and then noticing things in the ankles and the elbows, and what's wrong with my shoulder, and by the time I got to the subway stairs, I was like, oh my God, this is really hard. I have to go pick up my tuba and then carry it to go play in this brass quintet rehearsal, and by the time I got to brass quintet rehearsal, I was really struggling. A backpack with the tuba in it, and I was like, what is going on? I have no idea. And I get to rehearsal, and it just so happens this brass quintet that Ryan and I played in was called the Silver Brass Quintet. And Peter Silver was the leader, the trumpet player, and he was a dentist. And he made decent money, and he bought this very big library of music, so we always had sheet music to play, and we would meet in this dental office. Turns out Peter got kicked out of the co-op building because it's so loud down there on Thursday afternoons. It's because we were playing these brass instruments. So anyway, I got there really late, and I was like in pain. Dentist office, good drugs. So Peter actually slipped me some prescription ibuprofen. You could take 4 Advil, or you can get your pill from the dentist that's got 4 Advil in one pill, So I remember that started kind of really okay, what's wrong? And at the time there was a low income medical, kind of like urgent care near where I lived. And so I go in and I'm telling them I've got all this pain and what's wrong, and they take an x-ray. And I remember the first thing this doctor said to me was, oh, you have a 6th lumbar vertebrae. I go, oh, that's the problem. He goes, oh no, not the problem. It's just interesting. Most people have 5. But you seem to have a 6th. Many years later, I learned that in fact, when you're born, if you have a 6th lumbar vertebrae, it's not really a lumbar vertebrae. It's part of the pelvis that didn't. It's part of the sacrum that just when you were born didn't become whole with the sacrum. Save that for a little later. He said, no, it's just interesting, And then they did this blood test. Now, in order to have rheumatoid arthritis, you need to have a rheumatoid positive factor in your blood. So it was a negative factor, but everything else looks like rheumatoid arthritis. And, they would send me to this doctor and that doctor and this doctor and that doctor and this doctor. Well, we don't really know what's wrong with you. It's rheumatoid arthritis, but not really. And then at the time I was a waiter in New York City, still trying to be a musician, occasionally trying to get acting work, the New York thing in your 20s when you're got a music degree and, got your headshots. And all of a sudden, it's like I go to the restaurant, and then my other full-time job was a doctor's appointment, and check with this doctor, and check with this doctor. Now, around that time, I noticed, what's this kind of grapefruit in my armpit?
Thank you.
Pam just said the F word under her breath. But I remember the day I was looking in the mirror with the lump under my armpit, and I thought to myself, I'm 26 years old, but I have breast cancer? I mean, that's what you heard, were lumps under your armpit. But anyway, then through all these, like, is it rheumatoid arthritis? What is it? They did send me to an oncologist, and he did a check, and he didn't check my armpit. And about, I guess, but same year, I'm going to all these doctors. They sent me to a surgeon, and I have this bump on my forehead, which I think is pretty much like scar tissue from running into a kitchen cabinet when I was like 5 years old. And so my doctor was like, well, let's check this and let's check this. It seems to just be this weird arthritis, but you're going to all these doctors. Let's check this. Let's send you to a surgeon. I don't know what that thing is under your armpit. That's probably just what they call a fatty lipoma, and maybe, so go see a surgeon. So I remember going to see this surgeon and the doctor going, that forehead thing, that's cosmetic. I'm not touching. Subtext, you can't afford to have it removed. I'll do it, but you can't have it. But whatever's going on under the armpit, I want to find out what that is. So he sends me for a sonogram. And that's another memory of like life-changing events. The sonogram tech leaves the room, the radiologist comes in, the radiologist leaves. It's like you feel like something's going on. So they send me back to the oncologist, and I'll never forget this one oncologist going, I didn't check your armpit the last time you were here. Like the lymph node check is like, and at the time I mentioned I was working in restaurants, and I'll never forget, I was working bartending one night and telling this story about this time in the story timeline, and this bar customer came back after I told them this story, and they go, ever since you told me that story, I check under everybody's armpit. Like, I don't forget. Because this doctor's like, I didn't check under your armpit? Like, I didn't do my job? I was like, well, if you did, you didn't feel the grapefruit. You didn't feel the softball. It was pretty big. So anyway, I ended up getting diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, lymphoma. Now, is it related to the arthritis? Is it not related to the arthritis? We don't know. Could be, not be. But what was interesting is when I was doing my, everybody's like, oh, contact the lymphoma and leukemia scientist, you end up becoming kind of like a medical student. Like, what's this and what's that? I've never heard of rheumatoid arthritis. I've never heard of a blood. Brenda's laughing. You have some experience, Brenda, yes? Right. And it's interesting because the one thing I remember from the literature from the Leukemia Lymphoma Society is while there are no risk factors specifically for lymphoma, we have noticed 84% of lymphoma patients lost a parent when they were young.
80%?
Like 84%. I read it in the lymphoma. Wow. So I was like, well, that doesn't help me. Did I do anything wrong? Now, by this time, I was conscious of diet. I was kind of anti-prescription, more than kind of anti-prescription medicine. Oh, you can heal with food. You can do this. You can do that. You can. I'm still going to rheumatologists, and I ended up having a biopsy to find out I had lymphoma. Then I found out about the chemotherapy, and then I had the chemotherapy. And interestingly enough, the chemotherapy actually helped or stalled the rheumatoid arthritis. But, it was pretty rough. And right after the chemotherapy, I remember really getting into, supplements,
Sure.
fasting, this and that. And through all that, I was actually waiting tables. And that's how I found out about integral yoga, one of my customers. I had ordered a burger, didn't eat it. I said, how's the burger? What's wrong? Can I bring you something else? oh, I'm a vegetarian at home, but when I'm on vacation, I like to try. And I said, oh, I'm not vegetarian, but I might be vegetarian after this kind of cleanse that I'm doing. And, oh, you should try integral yoga. Have you heard of it? 13th Street. That's how I kind of got into yoga. And it was still kind of like, well, I've got this arthritis program. I've got this arthritis problem. It's getting better. It got better with the chemo. It got better with the cleansing and the supplements. But it wasn't going away. But in my youthful late 20s, early 30s, I was like, I'm gonna get rid of this thing, whatever, and I actually said no to a lot of the medications. Anyway, I got to a point where it started to get worse again. And I had said to a friend of mine, I've been doing so much physical therapy, and the doctors want to give me this drug, and then I kind of had a weapon against saying yes to some of the drugs, which was for this weird condition, seronegative rheumatoid arthritis, blood factor negative rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, one rheumatologist at Hospital for Special Surgery actually said, we don't really know what it is. We could do a study on you, and we could probably call it Swartzitis, my last name. I was like, oh, that's what I'll start calling it from now on. But we don't really know what it is, but you should really do this medicine, that medicine, this medicine, this medicine. And then whenever they'd figure out, oh, we'll do this medicine, the oncologist said, there's a risk of Hodgkin's. He just finished with the Hodgkin's. We just got rid of the Hodgkin's. Why would we give him that medicine that could put him into Hodgkin's? And so it was just constant like back and forth. And I'm getting into yoga and and I'm having physical therapy. And I had just finished chemo. It was all this, it's like all this stuff. I'm still trying to play music. I'm still waiting tables. I'm still living, New York City life. But at the same time, there were times I was in a lot of pain. Well, at some point I said to a good friend of mine, who still is a very good friend, Michael, very resourceful. I said, at physical therapy, they always put me on the exercise bike. I should get an exercise bike. 2 days later, he's walking up my apartment stairs with an exercise bike. Craigslist, $15. And it was the beginning of the baseball season. And I get on the exercise bike, and I'm listening to the Mets opening day because the Yankees aren't on until tomorrow. So I'm listening, I'm going. Michael falls asleep. He wakes up. Dude, what are you doing? You're still on the bike? You've been on it too long. Well, that night I couldn't walk anymore.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So opening day, baseball, 2000. I'm looking at my friends, John and Mark, right? Everything. Oh, on opening day of 2006, the World Series of 1999. This is the way you can remember dates. That night I went down my apartment stairs, and I was in so much pain. And then in 2006, I went to the hospital, and they did 2 weeks of testing and 2 weeks of acute rehab. And in the rehab, they were teaching me, they said, our goal for you is to walk with a walker, leave here on a walker. And I was like, how am I going to go up that flight of stairs at the apartment with a walker? And I said, what about those 2 canes? I like the canes. That earns you an extra week in physical therapy. I'm serious. It's interesting, right? It's if you set a goal for yourself, they can use that to give you more rehab, more time. I was like, that's pretty cool. I want to walk. No. But so I left with 2 canes, and then about 6 months later, my friend Eduardo invited me down to. He was in the Navy in Georgia, and he said, oh, come down. We'll go to spring training baseball games. And when I flew down there, so I got out of the hospital with the canes, let's say summer of 2006. So by March of 2007, when we went for the spring training trip, we went to a restaurant by the Jacksonville airport. He lived nearby. And it took me like 30 minutes to walk from the bathroom of the restaurant to his car. I was like, I don't know what we're going to do. I said, I do not know what we're going to do. I don't know what these spring training small baseball stadiums are like. What if we have to park a mile away? I'm going to get there for the game. You won't get to the stadium until the 5th inning. And Eduardo said, we'll just find a place online tomorrow and get you a wheelchair. And I'll sell it on eBay after your spring training trip. Well, when I sat down in that first wheelchair, my whole body went, oh, thank God. Like, thank God. I mean, before I got the canes, after that exercise bike endeavor, what ended up happening, what we found out in the hospital, was that the joint between the sacrum, the wing, or the sacrum and the iliac, the wing, was fused. They even, when I was in the hospital, they even put a sonogram on it and put cortisone right into it. It was pretty wild. And they're like, wow, I'm sorry people are cringing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Trigger alert.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I apologize for getting too graphic. But they tried everything. And basically what it was, when I really couldn't walk anymore, it was because that fusion. So I don't know if it's this thing about the 6 lumbar vertebrae didn't fuse, whatever, but the sacroiliac joint just kind of fused. So now all of a sudden we go from just seronegative rheumatoid arthritis to, well, that's more like ankylosing spondylitis. I mean, I have other friends who had ankylosing and were in a lot of pain and took some of the drugs that they weren't allowed to give me. But that was really, so we went from like, I can't walk, and I was literally walking down the street. New York City still had parking meters. They were my canes. I would lunge myself off of one to the next one. I remember going to dinner on St. Mark's Place with friends, and to get back to 3rd Avenue, to get however I got home that night, I was pushing myself off parking meters. They were my canes. And then this hospital thing, I'm in the hospital for like a month. It was like 2 weeks of testing, 2 weeks of rehab. Left with the canes, spring training, wheelchair. And I don't know if I became a wheelchair fan that trip, or if it was just so, you need to keep moving. You really should be in a walker. You should really, and I don't know if I'm stubborn or if it was just too comfortable at that point. I mean, the other thing I have to, full disclosure, when Eduardo and I went to a game for the Yankees spring training and it was sold out, and he said, my friend's in a wheelchair, and he was met by some guy by the box office, goes, hey, I thought it was sold out. He goes, no, I got wheelchair tickets. He goes, whoa, you can get a wheelchair ticket? He goes, dude, my friend is in a wheelchair. Oh, I'm very, very sorry. Oh, I'm very sorry. But, full disclosure, yeah, pretty cool, wheelchair seats. Yeah, it's a thing. I had no idea. Do now.
Remember Lady Gaga?
My friend is visiting from New York City. What did we go to? 3 shows? 3 shows. He came, everyone, this is Swami from New York City, Swami Chidananda. I remember when I moved back to the city and I was living in the Institute, he came home one night and said, I'd like to go see the Lady Gaga concert at Radio City, but it's sold out. I go, use me. He goes, what do you mean? I go, use me. He goes, what are you talking about? I go back to Radio City Music Hall's website. Look for the little picture of the wheelchair. Click on it and tell me what it says. So we were on the 4th floor in our common room. He goes back to his bedroom. He comes down. He goes, there's a phone number. I go, we'll call on Monday. So at the ashram, we had to meditate at 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. I'm coming back after our meditation and yoga, and at the time I was using crutches, and I can still use crutches a little bit. Mm-hmm. I don't know so much anymore because 10 months later in a wheelchair accessible apartment, don't really use the crutches much anymore. But as I was crutching past his room, he's waving this piece of paper with with the phone number, and we got tickets. We saw Lady Gaga.
Nice.
Very good tickets.
At a very good price.
Of course.
It sounds crazy to say. Being in a wheelchair has its privileges. But I will also declare publicly, it's also a royal pain in the tuchus. I might use different language, but it sometimes really sucks. And it's sometimes really inconvenient. I did have a surgeon once say to me, we need to get you a double hip replacement and get you out of that wheelchair. I was like, what am I going to do for my sports tickets? And then I also had another rheumatologist say, you've been in that chair for almost 10 years. Joint replacement's not necessarily going to make you get up and walk all of a sudden. Besides, what about the problems with your knees and da-da-da-da? I mean, I've also experienced doctors who said, this surgery, we do this surgery, we do this surgery, we do that surgery. Well, they're usually a doctor who's doing a fellowship in rheumatology, a fellowship in orthopedics. And sure enough, the attending physician usually comes in at the end and goes, not doing that. Can't do that, Well, fast forward a few years, and I actually had 3 heart attacks too.
Oh, God.
And
I need the tissue. Yeah.
anyone else? Pam has the supply. I was living at the ashram in Virginia for about 1.5 years, and I woke up one night with chest pain, and is it related? Is it not related? Well, this was a couple weeks before my 37th birthday in May. No, 38th birthday in May, and I woke up with chest pains going, expletive, expletive, F word, this can't be an F word, heart attack, I'm not even 38, in two more weeks, Ended up just suffering all night, going into my job at the ashram the next day at midday. I didn't have to be in. I ended up sleeping off the morning, and my supervisor saying, you don't look good. Yeah, I don't feel good. I was up with chest pains all night. Well, do you want to go an hour away to Charlottesville, or do you want to go to Farmville? I go, I just want to work. Like, totally in denial. I just want to work. I don't want to go. She goes, you have a choice, Charlottesville or Farmville. There's no work. Well, they had a first responder unit because we were pretty far out in the country, and they came, and then I called a friend to take me to the emergency room, but the first responder said, we should really call the ambulance. This is really dangerous. Of course, I'm 37 at the time. I'm not even 38 yet. I'm like, I'll be fine, but whatever. So the ambulance came, and I remember being in the emergency room, and the doctor was like, yeah, your troponin is positive. I didn't know what troponin was. It's an enzyme that can only be in your blood if there was a blockage in your heart. So I go, positive good or positive bad? He goes, no, you had a heart attack. And I was still pretty much in denial. And those doctors, the cardiologists, were like, we don't know what to tell you. In 2006, I cannot walk. They're like, what's wrong with the doctors would come in my room and go, what's wrong with this guy? He looks like he can get up and run the New York City Marathon. I go, I feel I can run the New York City Marathon. Unfortunately, if I get out of this bed, I'm going to just fall into a blob on the floor. Then I have my first heart attack. What's wrong with this guy? He looks fine. And I go, I know. And then they go, we don't know what to tell you. We tell people to not eat meat when they've had their heart attack. You are practically a vegan. We tell people to practice yoga and meditation. You live at an ashram. Go home and rest. Go home and rest. So I did, and I was fine, and I had all these medications. Now remember, I'm still kind of anti-prescriptions. But I took the medications, And one of the naturopathic doctors around the ashram said, you don't need that medicine. Take these supplements.
Oh, God.
So I took the supplements. Supplements are expensive. Medicine's expensive. I'll be fine. I'll just do it with diet. Well, one of my yoga trainings was in San Francisco. Integral Yoga has different centers, and they actually were having an accessible yoga teacher training in San Francisco, and that's how I really became a yoga teacher. And it was pretty surreal when I actually started teaching yoga. It was like, teaching from a wheelchair. Seems weird, you know? I got used to it and got the hang of it, but anyway, so wasn't taking my medicine. Well, what do you think happened? 3 years later, another heart attack. I'm in San Francisco. I'm rushed to a hospital. And I remember the doctor, Dr. Millichman, when we followed up after the heart attack, he goes, you know, guys like you and me, subtext, Ashkenazic Jews, people with an Ashkenazic Jewish background, we need the medicine. You can only do so much with diet. He said, I tried to do it with medicine too. But, you know, you can only really go so far with the diet. I mean, people will tell you you can do this and this and this, and it does help. You know, but if it's kind of genetically in there, it's going to happen. You know, the third heart attack happened because, oops, hello, open enrollment right now. During one open enrollment, I didn't renew my Part D, you know, and all of a sudden, going to pick up the medicine that I do need, and I've finally said, take the medicine, live. Don't take the medicine, what happens? You know, so it's like the first time I walked into the Duane Reade, and they're like, okay, $725. I go, for 2 medicines for 1 month? You don't have coverage. That's how much it costs. So I didn't take the medicine. Sure enough, third heart attack. And after that heart attack, it was so funny. I had this cardiologist. He was from Texas originally, and he still had a really thick accent. What did we learn? Can I have permission to say the F word one time out loud? Does anybody object?
Say it as many times
That's
as you
okay. YouTube, trigger warning, F word coming. He goes, what did we learn? Verbatim. Take your fucking medicine. I kind of said it with him too, you know. And it was just kind of like, you know, and now it's, I have my date, everything, you know. Well, after the second heart attack, I was in San Francisco, and, you know, I got in the medical rotation in San Francisco, and the primary care doctor for those few months said, you know, you need to see Dr. Targoff. She's an amazing rheumatologist. If she can figure out what it is, if there's anybody who can figure out this mystery arthritis and all the stuff you've been through, go see Dr. Targoff. Well, I go see Dr. Targoff, blood tests, 18 vials in one sitting. It's crazy. 18 vials. I'm like, what are all those for? You. So after all this, if anybody can figure it out, Dr. Targoff can figure it out. What did Dr. Targoff say? Well, you kind of have rheumatoid arthritis. You kind of have ankylosing spondylitis. It's kind of both. It's really neither. This is 2012, so it's 13 years after it all started. But, I mean, that's really the talk. Why am I in a wheelchair? We don't really know. But take your medicine. So I have to say, you know, when you're in your late 20s, early 30s, you can kind of be anti-prescription. Yeah. And then, you know, the second and third heart attack, I went into cardiac arrest. And the anecdote from the first heart attack, the second heart attack in San Francisco, when the doctors over your stretcher, you had just come out of catheter lab, you now have a stent. The first one didn't really require a stent. The second one, my heart stopped in the emergency room. And after they opened it with a stent, this doctor said, you know, if you weren't here, we wouldn't have ever had this conversation.
Right.
It's like bell ring, bong, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, friends in San Francisco were like, oh, did you see pretty colors? Did you see your dead relatives? I was like, no, and I don't know why. But after time, I realized, I think I do know why. You know, people who write books, they saw the colors, they saw the lights, they were riding on the back of a butterfly angel. Those are the ones who are the skeptics. I was already into yoga and meditation. Yoga and meditation pushed me back into my family practice of Judaism. You know, my spirituality was intact. My lesson wasn't, there's something more than the physical body. My lesson was, take care of your body. Take care of your physical vessel. You don't need the spiritual stuff. You know, I would tell my yoga friends, well, I didn't see our guru, but I kind of felt his foot go, get back in there. You're not done yet. You got work to do. When I had this third heart attack, I was in the emergency room. I thought, oh, I'm tired. I think I'll take a little nap. Oh, I opened my eyes. That was a nice nap. Why is all hell breaking loose in the emergency room? And then I said, oh, by the way, can I go up to 68th? And this is an emergency room, just an emergency room on 13th and 7th Avenue. I go, do you think you can take me to where my cardiologist is at 68th in York? Sir, you just had ventricular fibrillation. You're going to Beth Israel. In other words, you're going 3 blocks away. You're not going 60 blocks away. I was like, oh. Well, then they had to call this special trauma unit to take me from that emergency room to where the catheter lab was. So we had to wait. This crew, they need 2 trauma paramedics. The second trauma paramedic, he's here. Take him out to the van. You know, take him out to the bus. They call the ambulance the bus. Take him out to the bus. So the one guy's taking me out because the other guys just got to the emergency room from uptown. And we're going through the doorway to where the ambulance is. Oh, I'm a little tired. I think I'll take another nap. 6 months later, I was invited to EMS week and had lunch with those paramedics.
Nice.
And I said, do you remember when I was going through the exit? What happened? He goes, yes. Nothing like that has ever happened to me before. You just clinically died. Your heart stopped. I'd never had somebody go into cardiac arrest, open their eyes, look at me, and casually say, VFib? Yeah, we gotta go. And, you know, they rushed me. And just recently this year, EMS week is like every June. And this week, because I had lunch with them, Facebook friends, and this guy said, oh, if you have a memory of me as a paramedic, please post it here. And all I wrote was, me, VFib, you, yeah, we got to go. And he replied, he said, still a unique memory from
Wow.
Being a paramedic. Because on some level, you kind of like get used to just spending so much time around doctors, around residents, around fellowships, around medical students. I've told some doctors, I think I could probably go on rounds with you and do better than some of the people that are doing rounds with them. And they go, no, you probably could. You probably could. And okay, yeah, I get sports tickets and Lady Gaga tickets, but I also get lymphedema. And one of the things, when Ryan says you should look in Ithaca, okay, Flick, okay, Temple Bethel, okay, wound care at Cuga Health. Maybe some of you who have lived here for years, I may have been up to Cuga Health more than you. Maybe not, I'm just saying. Sometimes twice a week over 9 months adds up. Sometimes it's once a week. if this talk was a week ago, you would have seen me wearing New York Yankee locker room shoes. I only started wearing shoes again after 9 months on Tuesday because the wounds from the lymphedema got better. That's like, okay, you can go to regular bandages and regular compression stockings. So I was wearing locker room shoes, slip-on shower shoes for 9 months. So that's what I'm talking about. There's just some of it's just like you get used to being inconvenienced more than, having the conveniences kind of. So that is why I'm in a wheelchair.
Amazing.
Now we do have more time, and if people have questions or, Jean, here are my eyebrows, and yes, you can ask the question.
Yes, I love his eyebrows. Let's see.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, yes. Oh,
I wanted to say you're really lucky. My father, Ashkenazi Jew, died of a heart attack at 37.
Wow.
Same age.
Yeah.
Boy.
I'm glad you had a
so
chance to
sorry.
share that before you had to leave. Thank you. Jean, yeah.
so at one point, early on with your doctor's visits, what was the matter with you was that there was something that hadn't been fused.
So, yeah. Okay, so it was my sixth when I first started going to doctors, and it, progressively became more doctors and more appointments. The first thing the doctor said was, "Oh, you have a 6th lumbar vertebrae." And I said, "Well, what does that mean?" He said, "Nothing. It's just interesting. Most people only have 5. Or, you're showing a 6th one." And I said, "So is that the problem?" He goes, No, not necessarily.
Well, if you wanted to explain that again, that wasn't my
Okay,
question.
so the spine, right?
No.
You have the cervical spine that has, what? I'm sorry, Jean, what's the
What
real
are you trying to
question?
say?
That's not really my question.
Okay,
I was using that as a reference point to my question, that something hadn't fused properly.
right,
That's why I thought it was an extra vertebrae.
right. So it was,
Okay, so my question is.
oh, yeah.
Later on, you talked about, I don't know the part of this, the lower spine, but you used the term wings for this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, and so there was also some sort of a problem to do with fusion or lack of fusion. These are 2 separate events. So my question is, the first doctor who you had an x-ray and they showed, and it showed that what should have been fused was not. Why didn't that x-ray show that other problem with the other part of the skeleton that has these wings? That wasn't discovered back then, right?
Correct. Well, it hadn't happened yet. The real answer is it hadn't happened.
Oh,
So what had happened was, when I woke up, it was 2 toes swollen. Then other joints started to hurt. And it started this, well, you've got a problem, but we don't know exactly what it is, right? Like in San Francisco, you kind of have this, but not really. You kind of have this, but not really. So it was an early stage. And as a lot of you probably know, when you start to get arthritis, it's an ache, then it's a pain, then it's a limited movement, then it's, worse, and then you take a medicine, and then you have to take a medicine because you're taking that medicine, and then that medicine might cause a problem.
So you're taking another medicine.
So you take another medicine because that one caused an allergic reaction, and now you have to remember to tell the next doctor, right? So, but what I'm saying is, when I had that chemotherapy for the Hodgkin's disease, all the kind of aches and pains got better for a little while.
But what I'm really wondering, if you could just use the name of that.
Iliac,
The iliac, is that the thing that has those sort of wing things?
where the hips go into the iliac.
Okay, so,
When you get a joint replacement, they're putting the replacement in the iliac, I think.
I just want the proper language. There's these wings as part of iliac. Did they become fused or did they become, which direction did they go?
Okay.
From becoming fused or unfused?
No,
And
see,
whatever happened, it happened after that
Okay.
thing with the,
So when that first doctor told me that I had a 6 lumbar vertebrae,
yeah.
I didn't learn till many years later. It's probably not a vertebrae or no, listen, I know your question. Just give me a chance, please. I learned much later that it could have been at birth. That was part of the sacrum, okay, that didn't fuse. So it looks like another vertebrae, but really it's supposed to be part of the sacrum. So that doesn't really have that much to do with the disease, although I can't say that definitively, and doctors might not agree. The fusion where the iliac fused to the sacrum, and it became so painful that I couldn't walk, was as a result of a progression of the disease and possibly me exacerbating it when I rode that exercise bike for too long. And so it could have been that I rode the exercise bike too long, my joints already diseased with this nondescript arthritis that they use many different names for. Seronegative rheumatoid arthritis, polyarthritis. It could be any one of a number of arthritises. I forget some of the other names they used, you know. But it wasn't, so this all started in 99. Opening day 2006 was when I couldn't walk. So there was no evidence of any joint fusions until they saw that the sacroiliac joint, where the iliac and the sacrum come together, actually fused. That's why my pain from walking at first, where I really couldn't walk unassisted anymore, was this lower back pain down here. You're supposed to have a little movement there when your legs ambulate. Mine now were fused, and that was the point I stopped being able to walk. It was very late in the progression of the disease. We're now 7 years in. 2 years in, I had that chemotherapy for Hodgkin's disease. So those drugs, this being an autoimmune thing, autoimmune disease, those drugs delayed the progression. My dieting and fasting and supplements, etc., it took me a long time to admit this, but it might have slowed the progression. Some of the fasting might have been not healthy fasting. It might have been starvation. It might have advanced the progression.
Sure.
Look, the fact that I'm saying this in a room full of people in a public setting, I wouldn't have admitted that for a long time, because some of those times during that period, I had friends, I had family of friends saying, "You are too thin. You don't look healthy." And I was like, but my joints hurt less. I'm training my body not to eat enough. I'm training my body not to eat even though it's saying it needs it. Is it conclusive that I progressed because of it? Is it conclusive that I slowed it down? I will never know. Well, maybe one day I'll ask.
Yeah. You might get an answer. Maybe
And
he
I might
doesn't
get an
know.
answer. But you know
He
what?
probably doesn't know.
Look, what is life? Life is an education.
Right.
You know? So, like, was it meant to be that I'm in a wheelchair to get this specific education? I confidently say, well, I learned a lot. I would have never ended up in Ithaca, as far as I know.
We're glad you're here.
Well, I'm glad I'm here too, but what I'm saying is, why am I in Ithaca? I found a wheelchair accessible apartment. That's the answer to that question that I've gotten a lot, you know.
Right.
Did I know, you know, leaving the ashram was a painful experience. Had I sworn off teaching yoga ever again? Yes. Did I look for it? No. Did it find me?
Sort of.
Pam?
Yes.
No, I mean, I wouldn't have met you, right?
Right.
Right? I didn't plan to walk in as Susan was saying, I need subs.
Right.
It happened. It found me. You know, Ryan being here, Rima's here, Vicky's here. We play in the klezmer ensemble because Ryan's the director. Did I ever think I was going to play my horn again? Not really. Not with other people. Ryan said to me at the first rehearsal that I went to, or the second rehearsal I went to with my horn, I didn't have my horns when I first got here. He said, "Yeah, you sound pretty good." I go, "Not bad for having not played with people for over 2 years." He goes, "You haven't played with people for 2 years?" I was like, "No, this is all, you're surprised. What about, I'm surprised." But I've been around Jewish music the whole time. That's the majority of what I listen to. So give me a horn, sit me in the situation, hear a tune. Rima's playing violin, Vicky's playing violin. Mandolin, sorry. String. They're string players. Anyway, string players and brass players if you're musicians, But anyway, but like, my brain and my body, are doing it. I'm not thinking it. I'm not knowing how to do it, but it's there still, and so that was a surprise, lots of surprises. I think Deirdre had her hand up first, and then Vicky.
You just answered my question.
Oh, really? Oh, super. Oh, Vicky.
And my question was right in there, so maybe you can just expand upon.
Sure.
What role did music play at all in your journey through all of this as a musician? Did you play? Did you?
Pam, get it ready.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I mentioned the carrying the tuba around New York City.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I mentioned the carrying the tuba around New York City. In 2005 and 2006, I remember I was playing with several kind of like community orchestras, and one of the concerts I played is probably one of the last orchestra concerts I ever played, like with a symphony orchestra. It was this orchestra that was trying to be a little more serious than just the community orchestras. I was playing in plenty of community orchestras in New York City, but this one was trying to be a real, fundraise and become a professional orchestra. And so they were attracting people because the people who were running it knew a lot of really good young musicians. And so they were really doing, there were some that you were just sitting next to journalists and lawyers and, didn't have time to practice except for a rehearsal or the concert or a little bit on weekends. But this one was pretty serious. And I remember playing a few concerts with them, and we played American in Paris by George Gershwin on a concert. And there's a little tuba solo at the end. And I remember I used to get in trouble from one of my tuba teachers. "All you ever play is American in Paris. All you ever play is the American in Paris solo. You don't warm up. I never hear you warming up. Whenever I hear you warming up, you're playing American in Paris. You're playing." So it was like, this concert was like the dream concert. I finally get to play American in Paris. So I played the solo beautifully, as you can
That's
imagine.
lovely.
Well, I'd worked on it for so many years.
Maybe you could play it.
But
like-
here's the problem, though.
Yeah.
When you have a solo, you get a solo bow.
Oh, and you had to.
I used to get nervous at concerts.
Right.
One of the most nervous times I was going to be, what am I going to do when he tells me to take my solo bow? I don't know if I can stand up.
Did you just go like
And
that?
plus, I'm holding the tuba. No, I lunged myself forward and I stood up and I took my solo bow. And it was kind of like, no, I don't know if I can sit back down. But no, I did the solo bow, but I was playing. But also, a part of the story I didn't get to was after I started walking with canes, after Eduardo got me that wheelchair, that started a very transient period. One of the reasons I ended up living at Integral Yoga Institute and how Swami Chidananda ended up as one of my roommates is I had to give up my apartment because I was living with Eduardo. When I was visiting New York City, I was staying as a guest at Integral Yoga. That's how I ended up as a resident there because they knew me from staying as a guest. That's when I went to Virginia. When I left Virginia to go back to New York, I went back to the ashram. So I remember when I was starting, at one point I wanted to go back to graduate school for music, and I started practicing, and he said, our friend here who's visiting said, after this audition, you're going to still be practicing all the time? Like, it's like, it's kind of loud. I said, well, yeah. So, but there is this like practice mute that I could listen to what I'm playing on headphones. It's really? I go, yeah, it's kind of expensive. How much? It's like $100. He goes, let's go tomorrow. You can pay me back. And we did. We went and got the silent brass from Yamaha. We went to the store together. He got it for me. I paid him back over
A nice story.
several months. But yeah, music has always been a first love. And one of the things that's been very hard through this whole journey is I haven't been able to do what I love. And I do sing, and that's where Temple Bethel comes. I'm not a cantor, but I've learned out of my passion for Jewish music, I've learned to lead services, and I've done that almost everywhere I go, because cantors are a kind of a dying breed, because synagogues can't afford to have more than a couple clergy unless you're in a big city with a huge budget. So like here down the street, they have a rabbi. And, before I got here, I was watching their services on Zoom, and they were saying, sign up to lead services, sign up to lead services. I'm going to be away on paternity leave, sign up to lead services. And I was like, too bad I'm not there. I could do it. And then I got here, and I've been doing it a lot. And music is music, and, I do sing, but it's funny because I see on social media, I see a lot of tuba players, and I think to myself, boy, that guy sounds great. I'd love to have a horn like that. Meanwhile, it's like, I can't pick that horn up. Like if you guys have seen me at the klezmer ensemble playing baritone, tenor horn, euphonium. They're really tenor tubas. For me to play a tuba again, like I did the American in Paris solo, I can't lift those things anymore. I can't really carry them around, roll around with one of those in my lap, but a tenor horn or a baritone or a smaller tuba, these tenor size, I can't. So it's something that, I really had to say, look, I have this love and a talent for it. And I also have to say to myself, you can't do it like you want to. You can't do it the way you wish you could. And it's one of those things that's, okay, sports seat and punch in the gut. You can't play like you used to. You can't play, and that's not meant to be. That's the lesson. That's not meant to be, But the sports tickets are meant to be. Finding a place to live in Ithaca was meant to be. Being associated with Lifelong was meant to be. It was the place for me, and that's why I'm here today, and that's why I get to do laughter yoga and guided meditation and Lansing Community Library chair yoga. And it's not just like I'm going and teaching. We have this community that my Play It Again theater, I had the headshots. I went to a few auditions. I was in a few student films, I can't do that anymore because that wasn't meant to be. Would have loved it, but it wasn't meant to be. Hi, Brenda. I see you.
I know you do. As someone who also lives with a mobility disability.
Yes, you're a wheelie like me.
Really. My question is, coming from that space, have you befriended your body?
Yeah, no. Yes and no. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes I'm pretty mean to my body.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm very mean to my body. When I started meditating, when you start when I started, when you start, when people start, I don't know, everybody's different. When I started meditating regularly, I was living in Virginia at the ashram and pretty much going every day. And when I started up here was just noise. As I started to slow down and meditate, that noise became words. Those words became clear sentences. And I remember sitting at a 5 a.m. meditation in Virginia, and I actually heard, I really, word my cardiologist used about medicine, hate you. I really hate you. I heard my mind say that about myself. And I remember thinking, oh, that's not a healthy thought. Oh, that's not good. And you know, I've had dreams with kids in them. And in one of the dreams, I had a dream with an abused kid in it, like a really young child that looked abused. And I remember thinking to myself, if you want to heal, you got to stop doing that to yourself. You're that kid. And I had a dream recently about, I mentioned the rabbi who was on paternity leave, so his little baby's at the synagogue all the time. I had a dream about the baby. And I was taking care of the baby. And I remember thinking, oh, I still have to take care of me that way.
Yeah.
Like really gentle. You know, I really have to do that because of the pain, because of the physical issues, because of like the psychology of it. More than once, my therapist has said, be kind to yourself. You know, that's hard for everybody.
Yeah.
That's hard for everybody. But when you have challenges and you tend to beat yourself up, or you tend to think, oh man, I did this with my fasting. Not necessarily. I did this with that and this and that, and not necessarily. You know, this was probably going to happen whether I wanted it to or not. And I can't honestly say I did, right? We all have the movie of our life, and the script was written, and we probably wanted to change some of those scenes. We all probably wanted to change some of those scenes, and we can't. And I have to remind myself, and you're no different, right? And you know, think about it. Okay, sometimes I think, what am I doing in Ithaca? It's part of the script. Could I have changed it? Maybe. But why did I spend all that time in Albany applying for apartments, getting on waiting lists? Why did the Ithaca apartment work out, and as soon as I moved in, start getting calls from Albany? Hey, you're on the top of the waiting list now. Well, I just signed a lease.
Too bad.
So I think this is where I'm supposed to be.
I'm glad.
And today I'm here talking to you, and this is where I'm supposed to be. And I thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
I mean, that doesn't mean get out, we're done if you have any more questions. But I really appreciated sharing all this with you. Thank you, Ann. Yeah,
I'm
Ann.
just curious, did your dad die of a heart attack, if you don't mind?
Sudden heart attack.
Sudden
I
heart
woke
attack.
up on a
Because you said that.
I woke up on a Saturday morning to my mom screaming, "My husband?" ? And I stayed in bed going like, not real,
Yeah.
Yeah.
not real. And then I remember saying, bad word, it is real, you better get up now. And that's a whole other story. Maybe that's for the next
The
mosaic.
next one, exactly.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Deirdre. Thank you, everyone.
So we have
Thank
it.
you.
It worked? The whole thing?
Okay.
Yay!
Did we get it?
Any last words?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Vicky, for recording this.
Okay, I'm pushing the button.
Oh, that was great.
And then can you push the button on top, which will put the whole device to sleep?
No, I didn't.
No, I'm saying, can you now push? Thank you, Val. That's the one.
No, on top, you said. Top, top, top?
No.
Susan, this was
No,
great.
Val pointed to it.
This one?
That one, yeah.
But thank you for making it.
Val knows because she's young like me.
Well, because I was a teacher, I had to know all
Oh, yeah.
that. Listen.
Oh, let me stop this one. Thank you, Val.